This lecture covers Chapter 7, Job Analysis, Work Descriptions, and Work Groups. Managers are often faced with selecting individuals who meet the criteria determined from a job analysis and subsequent job descriptions to fill open positions. This lecture is designed to introduce the learner to the specifics of conducting a thorough job analysis and creating an appropriate job description. Effective management requires the thoughtful analysis and measurement of job tasks and the careful evaluation of how employees perform those tasks to achieve the goals of the organization. A job analysis is an evaluation and documentation of the tasks, conditions, requirements, and authority arrangements of a working situation. Most job analysis is done informally with a very general knowledge of the expectations of the employee and the working relationships of the employee with fellow employees and with management. Although an informal analysis is frequently adequate, it is not the best way to approach the issue. A formal job analysis involves observation and measurement of tasks and relationships with others and a thorough documentation of the information gathered. Please refer to pages 174 to 175 in your textbook to define what is meant by all of these factors which are considered in a job analysis. A job or work description is defined as a written document describing the tasks, expectations, reporting relationships, and other information relative to the employment of an individual. After performing the job analysis, a job description is developed. The purpose of the job description is twofold. The format of the job description varies widely, but in general it should address a number of items, 9 of which are listed in this slide. Please review pages 176 to 177 to see the description of these items. Once formulated and approved, the job description should be reviewed periodically, at least annually, to be certain that it continues to reflect the job as it exists in real time. This is particularly important if it is to be used as an evaluation tool in addition to a simple description. Once the job is analyzed and documented and the description is developed, it is time to hire the best person. Turnover in the healthcare market has always been problematic, as has the perception of limited chances for advancement. These factors make it even more critical to hire with care and make every effort to create job satisfaction so that employees will stay. Once the job has been posted, either within the institution or in print or electronic media outside the institution, the first step in the hiring process is the job application. The format of the job application is not accidental. A number of regulations require the asking of certain questions, while others forbid the asking of other questions. For these reasons, job applications do not request information about these qualities. Once the application is in hand, regulatory and internal criteria must be met. The next step is to review all the applications, narrow the field to a handful of candidates who appear to be most qualified for the job. This initial screening process is sometimes handled by the Human Resources Department. A formal or informal interview is the next step. The interviews may be done by a group of persons who will be working closely with the candidate or by one or more individual interviews. How this is handled may depend on availability of interviewers and or past history and or personal preference. Questions may be specific or part of a behavioral interview during which the candidate is asked more about how they would react in certain situations rather than direct questions about skills. The behavioral assessment is more commonly used for managerial positions than the specific skills questions, which are used for more technical types of positions. These are some commonly made inquiries during a job interview. Be familiar with these additional inquiries during a job interview. Generally, any questions designed to elicit information as to race, color, age, sex, religion, handicap, or arrest and court records, unless based on a documented occupational qualification, should not be asked. Inappropriate questions include the following listed in this slide. Questions regarding age or date of birth. The Age Discrimination Employment Act of 1967 forbids discrimination against persons between the ages of 40 and 70 years old. Questions regarding the nature or severity of any handicap. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Evaluation of job performance is a task that few managers relish, but it is extremely important to employees and can be made reasonably painless by following a few simple guidelines. Performance evaluation really starts during the orientation period, when a trainer is teaching the new employee the details of the job, and continues to a more formal stage at the end of the probationary period, when a formal performance appraisal is completed and documented. Two types of performance evaluation listed in this slide will be presented: competency-based and criteria-based. Direct observation can be beneficial in that it provides formative feedback and evaluation rather than a summative evaluation. The number of tasks assessed during orientation is considerably greater than those assessed at an annual performance appraisal. Observing the new employee as he or she is being trained and documenting on an orientation checklist the satisfactory completion of a learned task assures both the trainer and trainee that the task has been completed successfully. The hard copy documentation serves as proof to inspectors that the individual was indeed evaluated on specific tasks and that the individual was deemed proficient at those tasks. The orientation checklist should include a list of specific tasks and the date they were certified or completed, as well as the signature or initials of the person documenting the training. The checklist, once completed, should be kept indefinitely in the employee's personnel file. Ideally, the checklist of criteria to be considered will be a part of the job description. In addition to the checklist, however, is a series of standards and criteria used to determine the rating given on the evaluation. For example, for rating attendance, the laboratory may use the standards listed in Table 7-6 on page 182 of your textbook. Criteria-based performance standards permit satisfactory ratings to be developed for entry-level employees as well as for seasoned scientists. The standards are objective and measurable and leave no doubt from the records about the performance of the employee. Both the employee and the employer have documented proof of why a particular rating was given. Some institutions have adopted a policy of 360-degree evaluations for managers, where both the person to whom the manager reports and those who report to the manager complete the evaluation form either together or separately. There are pros and cons for the 360-degree evaluation. Sometimes the input from those being managed is more narrative than quantifiable, but the employees feel that they have some input into the evaluation. Performance evaluations, however they are handled, should not draw any surprises for the employee. Groups provide the opportunity for shared responsibility from all members of the laboratory team, resulting in a better understanding and acceptance of final decisions. Formal work groups are usually assigned to a particular area to perform different pieces of the process. Staffing and scheduling define these work groups. Informal work groups tend to develop within these groups based on the personalities and priorities of the persons in the groups. Certain role expectations are gained in formal groups and are defined by the task sets of the individual members. Other role expectations develop over time in informal work groups but are just as important to the way in which the group functions as is the formal definition of the group. Work groups tend to take on personalities of their own. Some are efficient and operate smoothly. Others are disjointed and dysfunctional. Taking the same group of people from one work site to another, even though the surroundings and tasks may be different, does not generally change how well the group works together. There is a certain bonding that occurs among members, and indeed, the dynamic of the group does tend to change. Groups go through developmental stages, which are listed in this slide. When a new employee enters the group, the balance achieved in the old group shifts to accommodate the particular skills and personality traits of the new member. The group first goes through a forming stage. Some groups never get beyond the storming stage, and the manager needs to either step in, smooth out the process, or rearrange the group by adding or deleting members to strike a balance. The third stage is the norming stage. Members are in agreement on how things are done, how tasks are carried out. Finally, the group may reach the performing stage where all members are comfortable with the dynamics and are productive and happy. This lecture has covered job analysis, work descriptions, and work groups. Managers should follow the steps outlined in this lecture and Chapter 7 as a guide to acquiring and maintaining an effective and efficient laboratory team.